Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the Board of Supervisors meeting to order for September 24th, 9 a.m. We'll go ahead and stand as traditional. Today we have a dedication for Correctional Officer Ron Warren, who passed away on September 19th. Brian, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any extra items not appearing on the posted agenda? No. Okay. Moving right along, approval of the consent agenda. These items are usually non-controversial and we pulled. Is there anybody from the public would like anything pulled from the consent agenda? Anybody from the board? No. If not, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agenda items 5.1 through 5.16.
Motion. Was there a
Second.
Second by E.J. Crandall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving right along. We're a little early right now, so we'll go ahead and go to calendars. No.
And so my calendar is fairly simple here. This afternoon, I'm meeting with a constituent. Then tomorrow morning, I am taking off to El Dorado County for an RCRC annual meeting that'll last till Friday afternoon, where on Friday morning, we will start our actual board meeting post-conference. And then I am coming back and I believe the 28th, it's not on my calendar, but I believe that's the day I'm going to be going over to Canocti Education Center, where my friend Dino Beltran has created his second movie. The first one was Walk in Time, about the Anderson Marsh State Park, and now this movie is about the sacred artifacts and what they're doing to protect them, and the work also that they've done with Sheriff Martin on that. And so that will be shown. The first showing will happen on September 28th. At the Canocti Education Center, which is an awesome facility for showcasing that. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I'll be back here on the 30th to meet with Carol and be prepared for our meeting on the 1st.
I'll go first. So following this meeting, I will have a meeting with my Earth Chair Town Hall. I missed it last week because we went kind of long. So tomorrow I will be at a Recovery Clean event here in Lakeport. They asked me to be a part of that. Thursday, Blue Ribbon Committee, and then I'll be heading to Sacramento for a Tribal Leaders Forum. Friday is California Native American Day for the state, so commonly I go to those as well. Saturday, I'll be at the same event that Bruno was talking about for the at the Canocti Education Center. Monday, CAO meeting, and then back here on Tuesday.
What time do you have that on for Saturday?
I have like 6.
Okay.
Like
Yeah, I had
that.
5, so I was trying to figure
double
out.
check. I think, yeah.
Okay, Rob?
Yeah, so are we going to meet with Jan today, or is that going to be till, okay, when Tina gets back?
Yes.
Okay, so the meeting scheduled, so I have a couple other meetings scheduled with staff this afternoon. The one with Jan will be continued till another time. Tomorrow I have some meetings with constituents in the Rivieras regarding some fire safe projects out there. The 26th, I'm going to head out of town to visit my son and his family in Nashville or Tennessee, and back on Monday.
Okay, I have the meeting today for myself. This afternoon, looks like there is a call again with PG&E. So I'll be on those calls. I think there's one at 12:30, one at 5:30. At least I have 5:30 on my agenda. Tomorrow will be down in South County I have a FEMA training that I will be attending in South County at the Tribal Nation. And then Thursday and Friday, I will be out of town also at the state capitol for the Native American Day celebration and the dinner with the tribal chairs and the governor on Thursday evening. And then Saturday, soccer at 9 a.m. for the little ones. And then I potentially will go attend we got two going already, so can't I go attend the movie, I guess?
Well, we just can't talk.
Yeah, we just can't talk. So I might attend that movie also, that showing. I've seen the first one. And then Sunday, I don't have anything. Back here on Monday for a meeting with Carol, and then back to the board meeting. So that's it. All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's
very much.
exciting, that movie. I was invited, but we were already scheduled to go back to be with my son, so I'm not able to attend it, but I'm looking forward to seeing it at some point, so.
And it's made by the same people that made the first
Yeah.
one. The first one won some awards, so
Yeah.
I think this is going to continue the same
Yeah,
trend.
it's very, very positive stuff.
Yeah.
So moving right along, it is 9:07. So is there any public input today? Any public input? Okay. Moving right along, let's take up 7.2, consideration of appointment of District 4 Planning Commissioner. Tina is not here today, so hopefully we'll get to a motion.
Consideration of appointment of District 4 Planning Commissioner, and the application we received was Christina Price. Did you want to?
No, sir. Appreciate you doing it.
And so, that's who she has. I don't know if we need public input, or how you need to do that first, or?
No, we just weren't sure if Ms. Price would be in attendance, and apparently she
Is
is.
she here?
No, she's not here.
No, she's not here.
No, she's not here. But I know her really well, and I think that's a good choice. I think she'll do a real good job. Very thoughtful person. She's a local realtor, and she knows the area real well. Grew up in Kelseyville, went to school in Kelseyville with my daughter, actually, so I know her real well. So, unless there's,
All right, any public input? No, okay. Well, entertain the motion. Motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent, good job.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Since you have a minute or two, if you'd like, we could do 7.4 relatively quickly.
Okay, moving right along, 7.4, consideration of date revisions of the board's annual meeting calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as you know, the CSAC Annual Conference is the week of December 2nd, and staff inadvertently scheduled a board meeting for December 3rd, which would make it difficult for some of your board members to go to the conference if you choose to go. And I'm aware that as our representative to CSAC, the board designee, you plan to go,
Yes.
Chair Simon. So in looking at your calendar, we had also adjourned the meeting for November 26th, which is Thanksgiving week, because typically you don't meet during weeks that there is a holiday. So what staff is asking you to consider in order to avoid having 2 weeks in a row when you don't meet is simply to flip the dates. So you would have a meeting November 26th, you would not have a meeting December 3rd to enable supervisors to go to that conference. If they wish, the conference is close this year, it's in San Francisco, so probably a better option for attending than it is when it's a long ways away.
Okay. Rob, go ahead.
so I agree with that. I think because I won't be going. I don't want to ruin my record of attending a CSAC meeting the time I've been here, but I'm sure the other board members would, and I would encourage
You
that.
have a reputation to
If they
hold.
could, yeah, that's right, I do. Yeah, I only have so many breaths in this life, and I won't waste as many as I can by going to a CSAC meeting. But we could also schedule the 26th and for items of only if we need to have one. There's no problem with skipping
That's
that one
true.
as well.
We could do that.
We could have it on the calendar with the thought in mind that it's going to be available if we have something that's time sensitive.
We could, I believe you'd have to officially adjourn it the week before, but we can see where we're at the
Yeah.
week before and make sure we have an agenda item in place, that would be the 17th, to look at what the calendaring needs are.
Yeah,
Does that work?
just a suggestion. So,
Yeah.
Carolyn and
Works
John,
with me.
are you picking up on that?
I'm perfectly fine.
Because it is, here's my thought on that. I'm not gonna be anywhere, but it's the weekend, it's the week of Thanksgiving, and if somebody has plans, if they've already done it, especially, and I'm not even worried about I'm worried about staff. You know, if staff already has stuff, I don't want
And I
them to
polled
feel like they have
staff,
to cancel
and
everything.
I think everybody's going to be around, so, so we're good with it. But
Okay.
certainly, if there's not much need to meet, we can advise your board on the 17th. The thing that seems to be most problematic for us are the disaster renewals and the 30-day requirement. And so
Well,
having
just
not
make sure
looked
we
at
have
that
them on the week
calendar, I
before.
don't know where they fall. Do they hit on those
Well,
dates?
they-
They're usually earlier in the month, but
Okay.
so far it's been like the second week of the month.
Okay.
Well, the other thing too, I mean, if you have one that's coming up, you have it the week before Thanksgiving weekend, even if it's a week or two early, just with the thought in mind that now you got 30-day cushion, right?
So yes, and we can also put out a notice to department heads that there may be a 2-week time when the board does not meet, and so let us know in advance if you anticipate things hitting those dates that you must have.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any public input? All right, not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the revised meeting calendar as recommended of taking the December 3rd off of the calendar and replacing it with November 26th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, we're flipping the dates, and we're making sure by the November
19th.
19th?
19th, sorry, not 17th, the 19th meeting, we're looking at the agenda needs for the following week, and we'll recommend the meeting be adjourned if it is not needed.
Yes. Okay, it is 9:10 now, so we can go ahead and do a presentation of proclamation 6.2, 9:10 a.m., presentation of proclamation declaring Friday, September 27th, 2019 as Native American Day in Lake County, California. I don't see anybody in the audience
somebody here
this
to-
morning, so I'll bring somebody up.
Somebody here to receive it? Maybe Bruno could present it to you guys.
Want me to?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do that one.
Oops, sorry about that.
All right. Board of Supervisors, County of Lake, State of California proclamation declaring September 27th, 2019 Native American Day in Lake County, California. Whereas Lake County has been home to people for greater than 12,000 years, and the richly diverse cultures of the 7 tribal nations indigenous to Lake County, Middletown Rancheria of Pomo Indians of California, Khoi Nation of Northern California, Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians, Scotts Valley Band of Pomo Indians, Habematelo, Pomo of Upper Lake, Robinson Rancheria of Pomo Indians of California, and Elam Indian Colony have informed every aspect of our community's history. And whereas Native Americans have helped to make our community stronger and more prosperous, and whereas we celebrate the richness of the county's unique tribal history and traditions and the impact Native American cultures have had upon every American, and whereas Lake County is committed to protecting the sovereign right of Native American tribal organizations and institutions to strengthen their own communities. And whereas, in observance of Native American Day, the County of Lake encourages all citizens to join in recognizing the accomplishments and contributions Native Americans have made to our county, and salutes those who have sought to honor the important role of tribal leadership in our county's past, present, and future. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Lake County Board of Supervisors declares Friday, September 27, 2019, Native American Day in Lake County, California, passed and adopted this 24th day of September 2019, and signed by our chair.
Thank you. On behalf of the tribal nations, thank you very much, Board. Appreciate this. All right, thank you.
And on behalf of Robinson Rancheria, I just want to thank the county for presenting this for us. It's a lot of new things happening in this county in regards to relationships with tribes and the county in general, and it's coming to a point of synergy, and that's great. So.
Keep it going.
and Scotts Valley Band of Pomo Indians would also like to thank the Board of Supervisors for recognizing the importance of the Native American community in this county.
I think my guys are all out of town in 10 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Okay, moving right along on the agenda here. Take up item 7.3, consideration of appointments to the Industrial Hemp Ad Hoc Committee. So consideration of appointments to the Industrial and Ad Hoc Committee. I know that Rob and Bruno have, I don't know if you've had conversations with these individuals, but if, go ahead, Rob.
Well, I think we've all had conversations at one point or another with all of them. First, I want to disclose that I am a property owner, neighbor of one of the applicants, but it certainly doesn't prevent me from being able to make a fair decision on this. So I just wanted to disclose that in case anybody does have an issue with it. The first question I have is, have we heard anything back from Farm Bureau as far as any applicants from them? Or are we going to do those separately?
Carolyn, did you reach out to the Farm Bureau?
I have not heard back.
Okay, but you did reach out to them?
So they have their own slot.
Yeah.
So your appointments here wouldn't,
No, I get that. I just wanted to know if we were going to do those separately before we could start having the committee meetings and all that, so.
the assumption has been that they would,
Appoint somebody on their own and that they
Okay.
would just be there?
All right,
Yes.
so, well, no, that's a board-appointed position, so isn't that correct, Anita? I mean, they all have to be applied for as equal members of the committee, correct?
Well, I thought what you did was you appointed a member from that organization to be selected by them.
Yeah, but they'll send that application to us in a form of an application, right? Or not?
They don't have to, depending, if you go back and look to see what you said, but it's perfectly permissible for you to just appoint the body, allowing them to select a particular member.
Okay.
You appointed a member from that
So
body.
we've already done that, and then they
You've
send that
already done
person.
that.
Okay.
If
And
you
that's-
want to do more than that, you can clarify it, but
And that's the only entity that we're waiting on?
We have the Ag Commissioner,
But they're-
we
that's a-
have the
but
CDD.
that's a given.
Farm
That's a
Bureau.
given.
And then
Farm
these
Bureau.
two, and then us two.
Okay.
Yep.
Carolyn,
Okay.
did we reach out to the executive
I
director?
had sent an
of the Farm? Okay.
Okay, I'll follow up too with Brenna, just to make sure, because we don't, if the sooner we get this going, the
Yeah.
better we can be. Hopefully, they've already.
And we
got
want to
somebody.
make sure they're at the table
And
too.
I just, I want to start by saying that, we have some, very good and qualified applicants here. And so, but I would like to make a motion to appoint Lance Williams and Hank Lesher to those two positions, Lance being part of the cannabis group. He's presented here well. I think he's somebody that can add a lot to the committee, to the demeanor of the committee. And I think Hank Lesher is, from the hemp side of it, I think the same thing. I think he's got a good qualities about him, about working in a committee setting that would benefit moving forward with that as quickly as possible. So that would be my motion.
Bruno?
I will gladly second that. Do we need to open it up?
Yeah, I need to
for-
open it up. Any public input on the motion or potential motion at this point? Any public input? No public input. We'll go ahead and bring it back.
And before I second that, I'll say that I absolutely agree. We had Lance Williams, a part of our ad hoc committee with the fire chiefs, very level-headed, has good knowledge, and adds to the conversation. So I couldn't agree more. So second.
All right, there's a motion in a second.
Yeah, and I'll gladly third and vote with you. I just wanted to say that there's a lot of good choices for the cannabis position. For the hemp, it was really difficult. There's only two, and I only seen so many people during it. So I'm good to go with your recommendation. So
Okay, there's a motion in a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Good decision, definitely.
Okay.
And let me know about the Farm Bureau, Rob.
I'll follow up with, I'll send her an email now, right now, so, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
And again, we had good applicants. It's not a reflection of anybody. It's just that, those two have been here through everything, through all the discussions, and have added a lot. So I just want to throw that out there, too.
And then when these committees take place, the other folks are still invited to come. Of
course.
Right,
Yeah,
it's
so.
still public
good
Be
meeting.
open to the
Yeah.
public, yes. Okay, moving right along, 7.5, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the cancellation of a reserved designation for landfill operations equipment. And let's see if I haven't missed anything here. Due to the unique nature of goods of services, and C, authorizing the Public Services Director, Assistant Purchasing Agent to issue a purchase order to Elms Equipment Rental, Inc. in the amount of $547,205. Good morning.
Good morning, Larry Ewing, Public Services Director. So the landfill, East Lake landfill in Clear Lake, operations at the landfill requires a lot, at any landfill, typically is very dependent upon soil. That is both for daily use and intermediate use. The memo spells out some of the details of that. About, I'd say 6 months ago, 6 months to a year ago, staff ran into the issue that the area where we get most of our soil, rather than being easy to get, I'll say, it went from soil to rock, simplistically. That became very difficult both on staff and our equipment. So we recognized that, well, how do we continue? How can we move forward? So a couple of options. One option came to the surface as the best option for two reasons. That option was a rock crusher in our borrow area. First reason being we can generate the soil on site with our staff. The second being that area that we are borrowing the soil, we're taking the soil from one area of the landfill that is not used for disposal purposes, taking it up to the landfill as we have the need. That borrow area is envisioned for future use for an actual disposal area. In order to make it ready for disposal use, we need to excavate down. We're looking at about, I think the latest estimate was about 40 feet down. In some areas, a little bit less, but about 40 feet down from current elevation. So recognizing that, well, we need the soil, we need to excavate down, let's do this ourselves rather than long-term, when we do the excavation, hiring a contractor to come in and excavate that area, and let's see what we can do it ourselves. So we rented an excavator. Your board approved that in May. Since that time, we have had that rental rock crusher on site, using an excavator to excavate the rock, put it in the rock crusher, and it pulverizes it down to a usable material. Staff, the landfill staff has been very happy with it, taking their recommendation, which I value highly. Their recommendation was, hey, I think it's valuable to purchase this. So we did an analysis of a cost analysis, but also a life cycle analysis of what is this piece of equipment, what are we getting into. It's not something that we have had before, so we did not go into this lightly. Why we're here today, rather than it being included in the fiscal year 1920 budget, is we weren't ready at that point. So the third point on this on the agenda is the appropriations necessary to fund it. The rock crusher, it's owning it. The benefits to own are spelled out. We looked at a continuous rental, the cost of that. We're looking at about $1.75 million. To do this excavation by contract, the engineer's estimate was about $1.6 million. That's at a cost of a little over $4 a cubic yard, which, doing some research, that is on par with other areas. So the purchase of about factoring in the use of the equipment, fuel, maintenance and repairs, staff time, it all boils down to a little under $1 million. So that stood out by about over $600,000 to be the best option. So that gets us to the purchase point. How are we getting to the point where we're looking to waive the competitive bidding? The equipment that we have there now, the rock crusher, we rented it in May, and the company that we rented from extended the offer for a purchase to own, rent it with applying 90% of any monthly rental cost toward the purchase. So we're looking to follow up with that and being able to apply $115,000 of previous rental costs toward the purchase of the equipment. Now, a new crusher, looking at what would a new crusher cost, factoring tax, delivery, freight, everything associated with that would be about $650,000. This crusher, factoring in taxes, it has 600 hours on it now. We're looking at $550,000. So, that's a new crusher in comparison to a crusher with 600 hours on it. So what's the equivalent cost of a used crusher buying it on the market? Best we could tell, these are not something that you can go out and compare the price of milk, in two different areas. But, we're estimating about $600,000 for an equivalent crusher. So it looks like we would be saving approximately $50,000 by going with this crusher that we have on site. When we received the crusher, it had about 150 hours on it. We have put, since that time, a little over 400 hours. So the bulk of the hours on this piece of equipment was by us. So we can, with a high level of confidence, say that know what condition this crusher is in. How long do we anticipate having this crusher? About 20,000 hours is what we expect. In discussions with other landfills who have them, and other, not just landfills, but quarries, how long have they had their rock crushers? Based on the material that they are processing, which is quarries a lot harder than our material, C&D, they're crushing concrete, they've had theirs for 15 to 20,000 hours. So we anticipate with the material that we have, which in comparison to theirs is much softer, we do envision having this for the better part of 20 years. And that's assuming about 1,000 hours of use per year. So happy to answer any questions, but I do recommend that we buy this for our long-term use.
Supervisor Brown?
I agree. I think it's a good move. I think, as sad as it is, I think some of our roads are going to get to a point where we're going to be better off crushing and putting rock on them than to try to pretend that we're going to ever save enough money to asphalt them. So I think, that's, how small will it crush?
It depends on the screen that you put in. We
Okay,
could,
so it's capable of.
the finer the screen, the slower the operation goes, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, it depends on the screen.
Well, sometimes you have to crush it 2 or 3 times to get it down.
Yeah, and you do, yeah, you will.
Yeah.
It'll slow down operations.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good use of, it's better than renting for the amount of time that we're going to need it, that's for sure, so.
Especially when you look at the, thank you, especially when you look at the longevity of the project, that the landfill is not going to end within the next couple of years. So the total cost overall through the years to get to the 20,000 hours, I think is definitely possible. I want to say first, I appreciate the back and forth we had in the emails yesterday, and you presented some of that information here today, so I appreciate that. Another question that just came to mind is there a possibility of working with Public Works when they have projects that they can bring you some of their rocks that they excavated so that you don't have to necessarily excavate from your area? You can also utilize some of the other product being excavated from other places.
Excuse me, that is a potential, but I will tell you that very rare is it that we get usable material coming in, especially from the road department. The haul costs alone are somewhat prohibitive on their end, and if it's good for us, it's likely good for them to use, and I don't want to answer for them, but that's just been my experience with what they use. Now, if it's something that's right down the road, and if they come to us and say, hey, can we make this work? We do have built into our rate structure very inexpensively for accepting material that we use on site. And we can always come back to the board for waiving of fees if it's something that is beneficial.
It's not likely, because we don't build roads, and that's where you would get the material from
Right.
actually excavating and building the roads.
And I do know that there is some plans for some development in the city of Clear Lake, so I'll go ahead and talk to the city about where will that excess rocks, for instance, we all know when the hospital was built or when Walmart was built, the amount of rocks that came out of those developments, and they're looking at doing some developments in those nearby areas, and that could be some materials for you as well. So I'll talk to the city about that.
I do have one question, just while we were renting it, obviously, they did all the maintenance and everything. You've worked in the maintenance costs and everything as you're moving forward.
Yes, it was, the bulk of the maintenance was built into the monthly rental cost. There were some wear parts that were paid for out of our own maintenance budget, but those were relatively minimal.
Okay. All right. Public, you got another comment, Bruno?
Go ahead and go to the
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to public comment. Any public comment on this issue? Okay, seeing none, go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board.
And just quick question, where is the borough area? Is it just south of the main landfill?
Generally south, slightly southeast, but
Okay.
but as you head into the landfill, instead of heading up to the right, if you head down to the left, you get down to the Barlow area.
Okay, that's what I thought, thank you.
So, moving along here, we go ahead and be ready to entertain or adopt or make a motion to move the resolution forward. We need to do A, B, and C. Do we need to waive the formal bidding process first, or we just go in order as it's set up here?
Go in order as it's.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll offer the resolution for A.
The resolution's been offered?
Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sebastian,
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall,
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Okay.
And then further move to waive the formal bidding process pursuant to Lake County Code Section 38.2, as it is not in the public interest due to the unique nature of goods or services.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Move,
Go ahead, Rob.
okay, so there was no opposed, so I just,
Oh, yeah, no opposed, I apologize, yeah. No one else was
I
here.
mean, usually that's me,
apologize.
so it's, I know I did. Anyway.
No opposed, yeah.
And I move to authorize the Public Services Director, Assistant Purchasing Agent to issue a purchase order to Elms Equipment Rental in the amount of $547,205.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay,
Okay.
motion passes. Thank you, Lars.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to our 6.3 item, 9:30 a.m., continued from August 27th, an appeal hearing for transient occupancy tax, TOT for Joanne Sacato, 16986 Dogwood Way, Cobb, California, 95461. Thank you. We need to
Sorry,
swear.
Joanne.
This is an appeal hearing, so we need to, if you're in the audience or anybody that's going to be testifying, need to be sworn in.
And Mr. Chair, we'd like to invite Ms. Sacato up.
Come on up and sit down, Joanne.
And Patrick Sullivan will present for the county.
Okay. Yes, we need to swear in now.
Anyone else?
And anyone else in the audience who may testify on this.
I don't think anybody else is.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and have Patrick.
Yeah, good morning, Board. I can provide a little bit of background on this appeal. Ms. Sacato was contacted as part of the original effort to ID unregistered vacation rentals in the county. After your board offered the waiver of interest and penalties for people that met those certain sets of criteria, being new operators, people that cooperated with our efforts, Ms. Sacato chose not to accept the waiver. Everyone so far that we've contacted did accept the waiver, although we are still in the process of reaching out. To provide a little further background, the taxes owed in this matter are $1,350.63, of which $1,042.69 represents the base tax that's owed. $307.95 is the penalties and interest that are present on the account. Just furthermore, we are still not aware of a similarly situated jurisdiction waiving base tax. We have been collecting from vacation rentals already in this area, which may distinguish us from some of the cities that Ms. Sakato referenced. And finally, I would just highlight again the same concern staff originally had, which was that a waiver could be complicated given there are so many other people that meet the same criteria. Ms. Sakato is part of a broader class, including those that have already accepted that waiver of interest and penalties. And that would summarize my report on this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right.
I have a quick question before we start.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, so you talked about others had accepted the waiver, but it's important that we not consider this appeal based on what others have done. You know, in other words, you know, the fact that she didn't accept the waiver doesn't mean that, you know, her appeal shouldn't be considered, be given different weight. But the question I have is on those that did accept the waiver was for the penalties,
Yes, for the penalties and interest.
but not for the taxes that they collected.
No, not for the base
Okay.
tax.
They collected the taxes and they were willing to pay those.
They did not collect the base tax.
They did not?
Yeah.
Okay, that was what I wanted to make clear.
Yeah,
Because
none
I
of
think
the
that's going to be
parties
the basis of the appeal, so, okay, thank you.
So just to further the question on that, you're saying that the parties didn't collect the base taxes from their guests, but they're paying them themselves?
Yes, at this point, as far as I'm aware of, the operators that have paid are essentially paying out of pocket. This group of people represented those that did not collect the tax, possibly because they were unaware of it or some other issue, but for whatever reason, that tax was not collected.
Right.
But
and
they're
that's-
paying what would have been collected?
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, so that would have been my situation for sure. So I thank you. And I want to thank you for taking your time. I look at your agenda and feel that this is pretty minuscule in the big scheme of things of what's on your plate. So I want to thank you for listening. I also want to make sure that, because I know everybody outside of this situation, I want to make sure that we know that this is not taken personally in any way. I know that you're doing your job, and I'm just doing my part. I also want to thank Patrick very much for being so helpful with the process when we were contacted by letter. I'm acting on my own behalf. As he said, I'm the only one that's decided to appeal this. But when we started our conversations about the ordinance and the enforcement action, what my understanding was is that the county was constrained by the language of the ordinance, that this idea to make a clean slate moving forward, which is being done by the city of Clear Lake and other municipalities in the area, the county couldn't do that because the ordinance language was prohibited. But kind of the effort was about getting compliance moving forward. And so given that, that's basically that the only way to look at the idea of a clean slate moving forward was bringing it to the Board of Supervisors, because it was, am I understanding that correctly?
That would be correct.
Yeah. So that's why I'm here. And I'm grateful to the board for waiving the penalties and interest. I think that's really kind. And I guess what I'm asking is a waiver of the taxes from 2016 to 2018. So when I got my letter and realized that I was out of compliance, I quickly made effort to contact Patrick to get into compliance. I registered, I've got my card and my certificate number, and I started paying the taxes for 2019 out of my own proceeds. Right, so there wasn't a mechanism within the Airbnb platform to collect those taxes. So I basically took it out of what I charge for the room from 2019 moving forward until September 1st, of all things, beginning when I went to do my spreadsheet, because you can download a spreadsheet from Airbnb that tells you what you've collected, and then you can figure out your taxes from there. All of a sudden, there was a column there now that says TOT on it. So I did the research and discovered that you can create a user-defined tax that comes out separately that still comes to the operator. And so there's a way to collect the taxes within the platform of Airbnb from the guests themselves, who we're trying to collect them from. And then I can still make the payments through the, I can still make the payments by filing. But the point is that once I became aware that this was what the requirement was, I quickly came into compliance. And I also, I'm recognizing that that I was required to do this. I wasn't aware of it, and that's no excuse for, ignorance is no excuse for the law. But I quickly came into compliance and helping others do so as well. And I believe in the tax. I think it's important. I want to contribute to the county becoming better and keeping up to par for our guests that are coming in. But I'm just kind of feeling like, so I'm not in dispute with the amount of the tax that's owed, or that under the ordinance that I'm liable for them, even though I didn't collect them from my guests. But I do feel that the past taxes is a kind of harsh penalty for some honest missteps. And if there's any way that the board can accommodate the forgiveness of the base taxes and the fees and penalties, I would most greatly appreciate that. I would just be grateful for that, to have the clean slate moving forward. It's kind of a financial burden, and for those of us that live in the Valley Fire burnout, it's taken quite a few years to get back, and I feel like I'm just on the verge of doing that, and this would be kind of a financial burden for me right now. So thank you for your consideration of that.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Well, since there's no, I didn't see anybody else that raised their hand to testify, so that's pretty much it for the testimony.
I'm the only one.
So first of all, I'm sorry.
If you wanted to testify, you're supposed to, do you want to testify? Would that be okay?
You'll have to be sworn in.
Sworn in.
Anybody else?
Okay, anybody else at this time who's second guessing themselves and want to get up here?
Okay, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, can you state your name?
Yeah, my name is Ron Aruja. And I'm also an Airbnb host who received the letter indicating that I was in non-compliance with the ordinance. I was also not aware that I was obliged to pay a tax, occupancy tax. And I also understand that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. However, had I known about this, I would have built that cost into my daily rate and collected from the guest and forwarded it to the county. I also, once I was aware, I did immediately
Okay,
register.
so I'm going to just ask a
Go ahead,
question
Ron.
real quick.
Yeah.
We're here for her appeal, not yours.
Right.
So can you,
Oh,
if you
okay.
could cut to the chase on what your comments are on her appeal?
Sure, I just, that I support her idea as far as waiving the base tax in addition to the penalties and the interest. I did not appeal basically because it was I just didn't want to fight City Hall. Essentially, I did show up though to support Joanne.
Appreciate
All
that.
right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So if there is
You can
nobody
go ahead
else?
and close the appeal. Yeah, there's no other
Okay.
folks testifying, so.
So I got a couple things to say. One, I really appreciate Patrick and Carol and, the whole staff getting this thing fixed up. So it's at some point, we're all equal. Everybody's on the equal playing field. And all the work that you've done, and you've got people to come into compliance, and you obviously compelling for a large percentage of, you compelled people to jump on board with your thing here. But still, for me, it's a case by, I'm surprised there weren't more appeals. And I would have felt the same way about about each one of them, that you take them individually and you listen to what they have to say. In full disclosure, I talked to Joanne earlier, so I kind of knew what her appeal was based on without making any judgment or giving her any indication of how I felt about it. But after listening to all this, I got to say, I agree with her, and I think the appeal should be granted, and it's not. And I realize there are other people out there that paid it, and then they're going to go, well, wait a minute, what about us? Well, that doesn't. Somebody shouldn't appeal because our minds are made up because of what everybody else did. My goal here is to get everybody square, get everybody on a level playing field. Let's start from scratch, just like the gentleman said there. He paid it, but he still supports her. I think we should grant the appeal and then and move forward. I think it was an honest mistake. We have people out there who collected it and never paid us, and that to me is theft. And that's totally different. She didn't collect it, she didn't keep it, and for these Airbnbs or anything that brings in tourism, we need them a lot worse than they need us. And so I think by not penalizing somebody for doing what they're doing, bringing in people, we should say thank you. Thanks for bringing people into our community that are spending money that can appreciate what we appreciate about Lake County. I think we owe them that at least. But at most, I think it doesn't hurt anything to grant this appeal. It's $1,300. In the grand scheme of things for us, it's not a big deal. But for somebody who's renting an Airbnb, that could be a month's worth of Airbnb that would have to rent out for free just to pay that wasn't ever collected. So I'm going to support the appeal. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Rob. Bruno?
I have a question. How long have you been doing Airbnb for your room or house?
Well, it started as kind of a house exchange, probably about 5 years now.
Okay. So thank you. This is my perspective on it. The fees and interest we already waived for all the others, so that part's not even a topic of conversation for me. That part right there should just already be wiped off. But then it comes down to the base tax. Now, we have some things that are changing. So we have the Airbnb, which some people are jumping into and taking advantage of the change in the way people want to travel and be a tourist. People are looking more for the experience of living in a community versus going to a hotel, which is more of a synthetic experience. But we're also seeing that same exact change from taxi cabs to Lyft and Uber, where now we're no longer the regulatory body for those things, and there's things happening that shouldn't be happening because they're following a different set of rules. We're trying to get everybody to follow the same rules. These new activities, in my opinion, have a negative impact on those that are already a part of that activity. So those who are hoteliers, those who are inns and lodges, that makes them have a different set of rules to be competitive by versus what those that were doing Airbnb. So I think that we're trying to fix the past and the future to ensure that we're saying we want everyone to play by the same rules and be fair across the board. Those people had to pay TOT tax because of doing a similar activity, but these people now we're going to say do not have to pay the TOT tax. What I'm worried is the message that sends out that if you choose not to pay it, that we might just say you don't have to. I think we have to be across the board. We make mistakes. We have to figure out what those rules are, and if it means that that mistake is a negative and potentially a burden financially, it's still something that we have to make up so that we treat everybody across the board the same. I think that's important that we treat everybody the same, and in fact, if we agree with her appeal, I'm going to say we need to look at those that we did not, that paid. Some people paid the fees and interest and the base, and some people paid just the base. I'm hopeful that we return the fees and interest on the others that paid the fees and interest, because this board made a decision to say, let's go ahead and waive the fees and interest on this certain group, because now we're treating those who just said yes when we said you need to pay, versus those that said, well, I don't want to pay fees and interest, to now we don't want to pay the base tax. We got 4 different separate groups of people: those who paid on time and did exactly what the rules say, those who didn't but still paid the full amount we asked them to pay, some that paid partial, and now some who are paying nothing. Granted, in the future, hopefully that will not be an issue. But now we got a very broad spectrum of treating people doing the same activity in very different ways, and I'm not comfortable with that. I think that, yeah, I'm not comfortable with that.
Okay. EJ?
So how long has Airbnb been? I'm just asking this just for everyone to hear this. How long has it been in existence?
No, I don't know exactly when it started. I know it's been prevalent in this area for, I believe, about 10 years.
Okay.
From what I've seen, that's about as far back as I've observed major activity on it, but I don't know when the first operations began here.
If I'm one that's going to do Airbnb and do I come to the county and register or something of that nature?
It would still be your obligation to register with the county, and I think the point Ms. Sakata was getting at was that Airbnb didn't necessarily make it easy for someone to collect the tax. They didn't direct you there. Basically, they treated you like a regular business owner where you were accountable for having to identify which government offices you might need to register with. They didn't streamline it.
Okay.
And that might be the difference.
I was just asking for clarification. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Brown?
So I see where Bruno's going. We want to be consistent, but we are starting at a certain point. So it's not, you go back, and you asked the question of how long she's been doing it, the answer was 5 years. Let's dissect that a little bit. It wasn't 5 years renting it every single night and give it, that impression. It's on Cobb. We had a pretty big fire up there, so it was out of business for months, probably years. And I don't think you rent it every month or every night, at
No,
least.
it's also a basement unit that
Yeah.
floods, so I have to shut
Yeah,
it
so-
down during parts of the year.
And why does it flood? Because it runs off the road and the drainage, and anyway, we'll get into that
No.
another time. And the example probably isn't the best analogy using the taxi regulation, because, yeah, we regulate that and we collect their money, but we don't do anything for that. It's just basically a symbolic, we pretend that we're in charge kind of thing. So I have my issues with that as well. The whole concept of, well, we didn't do it for anybody else, so we're not going to do it for you, or if we're going to do it for you, then we need to give everybody else their money back. So I guess the question begs, why do we have an appeal process then? Why do we even have one? What would be a compelling reason for the appeal? Or are we just making people jump through hoops symbolically?
If we had some misinformation about saying that this is how much you have to pay, well, no, this is actually the amount that I need to pay, or no, I never rented my room out, or I never
Okay.
rented. At that point, I would say absolutely appeal
Okay.
if our facts are not the correct facts.
But we're charging interest on money that wasn't collected.
And again, at that point,
we're waiving it,
interest and
but-
fees, I absolutely agree that should be waived,
And
as we've done in the past with the others.
And
And then I had one other thought. The resorts that you talk about that we need to be fair with, they're the ones that have ripped us off the most. We have resorts, the Ferndale Resort, I'll name them, we know for sure, they collected TOT and never paid us, the money that was dealt. There were others. And so basically, they stole from the taxpayers. So this is not the case here. So if we're gonna use them as, well, we need to be fair because they did all this, well, they caused their own problems in there as well. So many of the resorts did, so.
okay.
Now,
Well,
do I get to say
yeah.
anything? I just wanted to,
Do you want to respond to Bruno? Is that what you?
yeah, if you don't mind. And just to add to the conversation, basically, is that I recognize that this may set a precedence and open the door. But if I'm understanding the appeal process, the way Rob is making it sound is that it is on a case-by-case basis, and somebody has to actually go through the process to be heard. This is a transition period, right? This was a large mass effort, enforcement effort to get everybody into compliance. And kudos to the department and to Patrick. I mean, my goodness, 99.9% of the people that you've contacted, right,
No,
No, oh.
I wish.
Oh, well, 99.9% of the people that you did have conversations with have come through and agreed in one way or another, one of those scenarios that you talked about. And I'm the one exception. I apologize again for taking the time. But this is a transition period, and it's not going to be perfect. You can't go back to the beginning and be fair across the board for everybody. And as these new things continue to unfold, this is what municipalities grapple with, is how do we make sure that our fair share is still gotten. I think that I had talked to Patrick about, why don't you make an agreement with Airbnb so that they actually collect the tax and give it to the municipality, and just then nothing changes hands from the property owners, the operators, and all of that, and the time isn't spent with filing returns and having to look at those returns and depositing the monies. And he made it, and he'll clarify this, but he made it sound like that it's the effort to, well, why don't you explain why? Because that was what I was advocating for, is let's make this simple for everybody and just have Airbnb do it. But there's
And we can't
reasons.
control a private enterprise to do certain things. We can offer, but I don't think we have the capability or power to tell a private enterprise, do it this way because this will help us.
Well,
We can
Go ahead,
suggest.
Anita.
The only thing I was just going to caution, this is an appeal.
Of the tax.
And while each appeal is taken on a case-by-case basis, that's not to say that certain facts or policies are without precedential effect. So nothing you do ever happens in a complete vacuum, and it's up to your board to weigh whether you're establishing something broader than a particular appeal, and if that's what you want to do. But again, your board is entitled to look at facts and your existing policies and anything before you. But fixing it for the future is really outside the purview of this appeal. It's an item you can certainly take up on the agenda another time, of course.
Thank you for that, Anita. Thank you.
I do have one question, and I believe I know the answer, but I wanted to check with Patrick. This is the group of folks that you contacted for paying the TOT tax is only like the first set of multiple sets. This is not the entire set, and this is the only appeal out of all of them that's asking for the entirety to be waived, correct?
That's correct. This is the first round within the initial wave. So these are the people that generally did not collect it, but reached out immediately and made contact after I sent them their letter. There are still rounds within this of people that, as Supervisor Brown mentioned, collected the tax but did not remit it. There are people that we haven't yet identified. There are people that have ignored our letters. So there's several series of waves of enforcement coming up in the near future.
And the reason I say that is because I think that for those that collected the tax and didn't pay, that's a whole separate scenario. As far as I'm concerned, that's I don't know if it's a misdemeanor crime, but something illegal about that completely. The not paying taxes, in my opinion, it's not illegal. You just missed something that should have been done. We're trying to rectify that. But I'm worried about today's decision having an impact on those future ones that you haven't been able to get a hold of, exist, but still haven't found them, things like that, that they will also be in front of our board requesting the exact same thing. And that's why, again, I go back to treating everybody equitably the same way, so that we don't have to be faced with that type of scenario.
Okay, EJ?
So is there like a discount or waiver or something to move forward on for the people that you already reached out and hands down just agreed? If we were to approve an appeal, and then the next set of people, because naturally they're going to see this and say, they approved that appeal and waived that set of taxes, so I'm going to appeal so I can get the same result. And then the folks that are in the first wave are going to be like, wait, I paid. Is there something we can do in that nature to give them an incentive for doing what they did?
That's a policy thing that probably needs to be agendized.
That would have to be agendized.
That's what I was just going to bring up.
Okay.
Is that right, Anita? Yeah.
And today's appeal obviously is for Joanne Scotto asking to waive the base tax.
So, two things. I want to first clarify. When I mentioned Ferndale, it was the past owners, not the current owners.
Okay.
It's important to note. But second of all, you guys make a good point, and it was, when we talked about this, it was never my intention to, first of all, we didn't do anything to get this money yet. This is money that we're going to use to, pay the sheriff's department some money and pay the marketing that, so far has been a dismal failure on our behalf. But in the meantime, it's money that we're going to collect for that. So I agree with you. I think for the money, for those that have not collected money, they shouldn't have to pay any. I'm okay with that. I think we should bring that back. So you're absolutely right. Instead of making this a standalone example, I think it sets a precedent, but let's bring it back and talk about it, because I have no problem giving money back that they didn't collect. It's not fair to take money that we didn't do anything for. We didn't earn it. We haven't done anything that would indicate that they owe us. We haven't provided a service yet. We will from now on. So yeah, let's have that discussion. Let's put it back on the agenda. I'm good with it.
Well, it's just to respond that's a pretty slippery slope, because
I-
property tax and other things, we didn't do anything to earn those
Yeah, we
taxes
did.
either, because they bought the property.
We actually did. When it comes to property taxes, that's a whole different thing. We didn't provide a service. We didn't issue a permit. We didn't have staff working on it. We didn't do it. Property taxes, that goes to
Okay.
something completely
All
separate.
right, Anita, go ahead.
Just for clarification, the tax isn't based upon a service. It's different, completely different than a fee. You may be able to argue that there's a benefit and the county's done action, but it is a separate item, just so that nobody out in the public gets confused about
Okay.
it. But again, that would be an agenda item that your board can certainly put on whenever you like.
All right, well, I appreciate it, appreciate your time, appreciate the appeal here. What we have in front of us is the information that you were not aware that you needed to collect these taxes, and that it would be a hardship, and I think anyone who pays taxes on anything would have that same answer. I know when it came to the board and we talked about this the first time with the first round, I thought it was very reasonable to get off on a good start with the waiving of the taxes and the penalties.
Or
and
interest in-
in the interest and the penalties as we move forward, but this time, I would move towards not supporting the appeal. Okay, any more
I'm
discussion
going
from the
to make a
board?
motion to grant the appeal.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to grant the appeal. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. All opposed? No?
Hey,
All right, you have a tie. So you have two choices here. You can determine to withdraw the vote and put this over until there are 5 of you.
That's what I'd like to do.
Or here, where you have a 2-2 vote, that is no action. It takes action to grant the appeal, so a 2-2 vote is essentially a denial.
Rock, paper, scissors? No?
Always go with rock.
Yeah.
I would suggest allowing Ms. Scott
I
to,
agree.
Supervisor Scott to weigh in on it.
What's the rest of the board feel?
I agree with that.
EJ?
Yeah.
Okay. We would then put it over until there are 5 board members?
Yes,
Can you
is the
pick a
motion
date?
withdrawn then, for
Motion
today?
I'll withdraw the motion, yes.
All right, then you can put it over until whatever date and time this has been set, so I'd encourage you to select a particular day time.
I think December 3rd looks good. I'll be here.
Or November 26th?
How about November 19th?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, how's
so,
the agenda look for next week?
If Ms. Sakata is available, it's fine.
I was going to say, is this something I need to be present for? or
You
can just-
got to start over.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so what date are we looking
Or-
for?
Go
well, you
ahead.
don't necessarily have to start
Well,
over.
she's
This is
gotta present-
recorded.
Oh, it is recorded.
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
Supervisor Scott can listen to the recording. If Supervisor Scott were to have questions, then that would be the
Right.
concern if you're not present.
So what was
So our
the
next
date?
meeting would be, what was that, October?
The 30th no, October 1st, that's right. sorry.
October 1st.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
And Johanna, do we have a time slot that you can give for that?
Actually,
9:45.
can I just throw a suggestion out there? Because you're not in a hurry for this appeal. I mean, there's no time sensitivity, is it? Maybe we should have the discussion that we talked about, the agenda item on there first. Maybe that would resolve that or solidify, you know, I don't see a point in having an appeal and then later on having that discussion that we've been talking about up here. So
Whatever you wish.
does that make any
What's the
sense?
board feel like?
I would suggest that if we have that discussion, that I would like to hear a lot more about the process, what's been collected, how many are out
I
there.
agree.
So if Patrick can give us a broad view of what's going on in our county with Airbnbs and the collection of TOT tax, I would love to learn more about that.
But does it make sense to have that before we actually address this appeal? I think it does.
Yeah, no, I understand your
Most of
reasoning.
the questions we had were in general terms of the ordinance that we adopted as opposed to her appeal.
No, I think with that, it's logical.
Okay.
Of course, there are going to be issues with slippery slopes with that, just so you realize, because you've got a pending appeal now, and you've got other people who have paid. So as
Right.
long as your
Well, that's
board's
what we're-
aware of
yeah.
that.
Well, that's what I'm trying to address, because if we're going to have that discussion anyway, the process should be prior to the
And that's
appeal.
up, obviously, that's up to your board. I'm just,
Right.
issuing the concerns.
So if we're having that discussion first, I'd like an opportunity to meet with Patrick and talk about when we would be prepared for the broader discussion and not set a date for that yet, but
Well-
with staff's assurance, we'll do it as soon as we
Okay.
can put it together.
That, but in light of the fact that the board weighed in on some concerns, even though it wasn't on this particular item, things did come up, and maybe, staff's been pretty effective at coming up with recommendations based on the board's concerns and input, so, maybe there's some solution to that before we even get to it, so.
Absolutely.
So at this point, the board wants to wait to have this discussion as we brought back by administration and Patrick, so
And I'd like to.
at this point, it won't be on for October 1.
I'd like that with the understanding from the appellant that it's okay.
Is that okay?
Is
with
that
you?
me?
Yeah.
Yes, that is you, Joanne, is you.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I just, again, want to thank you for taking your time. I did not mean to, create open a can of worms, but I appreciate your time and attention.
Well, we opened the can of worms when
Thank
we
you.
tried to get this solved, so we're trying to get through it. We're fixing it as we go here, so.
Okay.
hopefully.
So what do you need from me moving forward on this? Is just to wait to hear?
We'll be in contact when it gets back on the agenda.
Or?
Right? There will be
No actions to be taken just yet,
Okay.
either way, so.
Thank you,
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you,
And
Joanne.
again, thank you
Thank
to
you, Patrick.
county staff. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, moving right along to our 9:45, 6.4, 9:45 a.m. Agenda item, reconsideration of timelines of Dan Kelly's appeal for the Calico Cat RV Park. And today what we'll be taking up is presentation from Michael N. Delville about whether or not there is cause to put this thing back or give him an opportunity to appeal again. That's what we're addressing today. Today is not an appeal. It is not something where you have to present anything. This will be presented for Michael Lynn, and the board will then make a decision whether or not there's an opportunity or if that's going to be decided. So, Michael Lynn?
Yes, good morning, Mike Lynn, Del Val Community Development Director. So I just wanted to talk about the timeline, chain of events that have occurred concerning the major use permit application that was applied for by Mr. Kelly. June 7th, 2019, the Community Development Department received a major use permit application for an RV park. June 28th, 2019, the public hearing notice was posted in the newspaper, sent to the surrounding property owners, and sent to Mr. Kelly.
Wait, give me that date again?
June 28th,
Okay. This year?
correct.
Okay. Okay.
July 11th, 2019, the public hearing before the Planning Commission was held. Mr. Kelly was in attendance. After the hearing closed, the Planning Commission made their regular statement concerning the appeal language, that the use permit can be appealed within the 7-day time frame. July 22nd, I have a typo here in my timeline in the memo. That should have been July 22nd. Let me grab the conditions and confirm. Yes, July 22nd, Mr. Kelly signed his conditions of approval. There was some email correspondence back and forth with the planner, who unfortunately is on leave, so I'm not able to get all the information from him. But there was some email correspondence. What resulted from that is I did write a letter to Mr. Kelly that was dated August 2nd. And I emailed that letter to Mr. Kelly, and it was also mailed to him through U.S. mail. And within that letter, I did give him the ability to appeal, which we did not receive an appeal. And that pretty much wraps it up. Do you have any questions?
On the, when the notice was given out for the agenda item, all of the conditions and everything was included in that?
No, we do not send out the staff report and conditions as part of the legal notice. The legal notice is sent out separately. That's usually something that the planners do, and the planners failed to send him the staff report and the conditions before the Planning Commission hearing.
Okay, Rob.
So on August 2nd, you sent the letter to him. How much time did he have to appeal that?
7 days,
7 days from when?
August 2nd.
Okay, so just the exact language of it. 7 days from postmark from,
I'm pulling the letter up right here.
It's Exhibit E in your packet.
The applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7 calendar day appeal period. If there's a disagreement with the zoning administrator, planning director, an administrative appeal to the planning commission may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fee must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th calendar day following the zoning administrator's final determination.
okay, so 7 days from final determination.
Correct, which was the date of the letter,
The second,
August
okay,
2nd,
all right.
which I emailed and sent via U.S. mail.
Okay. Because I know other forms of notification allow for mailing. It's, the one I'm most familiar with is 180 days, and then allows for 5 days for mailing, make it 185, so that's why I was curious.
Okay, any other questions, Bruno?
When was the agenda posted? Was it posted on the Friday before?
It would have been 72 hours before the meeting, so that's
I know
our planning
sometimes we
commission
do
on
it earlier.
Thursdays. So I believe she usually posts them on, is it Mondays? Yeah, Danae. Thursday or Friday before?
Week ahead.
Okay, so early, but 72 hours is the requirement.
Because I just wanted to mention that the conditions of approval are in the agenda packet for July 11th, and wanted to check in on that day, because I usually do see it on Thursdays or Fridays simultaneously to the agendas for the Board of Supervisors. That's all for now.
All right, Supervisor Crandall?
Yes, and so after the meeting on the 11th, it was read that 7-day calendar period provided for the appeal for that specific item on that planning commission agenda. And then I think a week or two later, then there was notice that there was discrepancies with the conditions and by the applicant. And so then you wrote the letter to open and try to get another opportunity for the appeal. And that was just, that was you deciding to do that.
Correct.
Okay.
It was not a requirement.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna,
Go ahead, Bruno.
sorry, so sorry.
Go ahead, Supervisor.
I'm just gonna say what's on my mind. If we say that you can appeal, I think we still have a problem, and that's, I don't think that you can meet what it is you're trying to do with your park with the rules and regulations that we currently have on our books because of where you are and what it's zoned. So I don't think that us saying, yes, you can go ahead and appeal to a different law that would allow you, because I believe what you're trying to do based on the conversations we had is you're trying to not only have residents come and stay at your place for whether it's a day at a time, a week at a time, but also some that stay that longer than the 30 days. And I think the 30 days is one of your issues that you're trying to overcome. But the way that the rules and regulations are set for this county, for RV parks, for that zone that you're in, I don't think that would change unless we made a, again, similar to talking about the TOT tax that we just had earlier on the agenda here, where we want to look at the regulation of how we deal with it rather than one specific person having that grander.
Once again, today, what we're addressing today is whether or not this board is going to take the information that we've been provided and make a decision on whether or not he can appeal. So,
but my decision that I'm discussing here is, if I say sure you can have appeal, I feel we're putting him back into a trap where he's just going to have to follow the rules that we already have set in stone. And so my belief is, sure, go ahead and have an appeal, but we are going to end up right back at square one unless this board chooses to have a larger conversation about the zoning and the activities that can happen in those zones. So I just think that I want you to find the ability to be successful in what you want to get done with your RV park. I don't think an appeal is the way to go. I think we need to have a larger context conversation about zoning and RV parks at this board level in order to get that accomplished.
and that's something that can be agendized later. Today, what we're talking about is being presented the information to see if there's an opportunity for Mr. Kelly to be able to
May I
move
say
forward.
something? Yeah, but we haven't heard his side to find out the
May I
timeline
say
question.
something, please?
As soon as I'm sure you'll get a chance, just.
You'll
Yeah.
definitely get
I
a
just-
chance when we go to public input. Please talk to me.
Yes, sir.
And we can move forward through that with the conversation. But once again, like I said at the beginning of this is a conversation about whether or not proper notification was given. We're going to have the appeal, and whether or not we're going to allow as a board for this individual to have another shot at having an appeal.
I can stick straight to that too, no problems. No issues.
Okay?
So,
Go ahead, public input.
my name is Daniel Kelly, and my wife and I own an RV park in Nice that's in question, and we're here to ask for an appeal, and the reason why we're here to ask for an appeal is very simple.
Carolyn.
We paid $3,000 for a major use permit after 10 years of meetings and madness, and we went to a major use permit meeting, and we were given the opportunity to have a major use permit, but no one told us any of the conditions. We never saw them. We didn't even know they existed. We never received them. The secondary letter that Ms. Delval wrote me, she wrote it on the 2nd. It wasn't mailed to the 5th. I got it that weekend. I got it that Saturday at my post office box. I was beyond my appeal opportunity. So
Can you work
basically,
through the timelines as they go?
So I don't remember all the dates. I don't have paper in front of me. And I'm getting really, as you noticed at the last meeting, really tired of coming to these meetings. But the fact of the matter is that you can't ask someone to pay $3,000 for a major use permit and not tell them the conditions of it. I mean, that's crazy. These people told me I can make 55 decibels. A dog squeak toy makes more noise than that. That's something I'm going to protest. But if I don't know about it before the meeting, I can't say anything. And then I give you the money and I go to the meeting and you tell me I got a major use permit for a car wash with no water and no driveways. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. You got to give somebody the conditions of their use permit so they can at least discuss them with the board before you. And then Ms. Delval's efforts are going on. You better watch people work for you because they're not taking what you want. That stuff didn't even get mailed.
That's a different issue. I said,
Well, it
talk to
didn't even
me,
get
please.
mailed to the 5th.
You
She
can
wrote it on
talk
the
to me.
2nd, but it didn't get mailed to the 5th.
Dan, you can talk to me.
Yes, sir.
Through the issue, please.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, if she's gonna write a letter on the 2nd, and her employees aren't gonna mail it till the 5th, obviously they know what's gonna happen. You know, they know what's going on. These guys this is the most mass. Okay, my wife, I'm just leaving it like this. My wife and I have been very mistreated by planning. We're very unhappy about it. And with respect to this issue that we're dealing with today, we can deal with all that crud when we get to it. But right now, look, I paid
paid $3,000 for a major use permit. I went to a meeting with a bunch of people on a board. We all discussed the issue. None of these things were, none of this stuff was discussed at that meeting. Not one of those conditions was discussed at the meeting. Not one.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
mean, if I don't know what I'm getting into, how can, you understand? I mean, I wouldn't pay $3,000 for a major use permit where I can only make 55 decibels. Every time I squeak the dog toy, I break the law.
And that goes to the substance of an appeal,
Yeah.
but your board's issue is timeliness.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, so
Supervisor Brown.
I want to give, you can call me Rob, that's fine. I'm good with that. The 2nd is a Friday, the 5th is a Monday. So it's not like, this thing sat on somebody's desk. If she wrote the letter and it went in the mail and they didn't pick it up till the 5th in the morning, I see how that can happen. That's not staff being incompetent. Nobody's going to jump in their car and drive it over to the post office. So I just want to make sure you know that there's a lag time and there's an explanation for that. That aside, even if you had 7 days from the 5th, that would be the 12th. So you still had time for appeal. Now, you're claiming, and we're sticking to the timeline because I'm not going to get into the details of the appeal. That you're saying that you were never given any of these conditions.
No, and in fact.
Okay, no, just a.
No, sir, never given one of them.
Never given one. She's saying she mailed this to you, the conditions. Bruno said that the conditions were in the agenda on
Mr. Holt did
on
not
the
say she
11th.
mailed the conditions to me. She said she mailed the letter to me, not the conditions. In fact, at the last meeting we had, Mr. Vol said she didn't mail the conditions.
No, stop just for a second. You're gonna get plenty of time. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. I'm not having an argument with you about it.
understand,
I want to
understand.
know exactly what was included. This is what I heard. I think you specifically said the conditions were mailed to him.
He signed the conditions July 22nd.
That's what I heard. Okay.
When he met with the planner, but the planner did not. The planner sent the legal notice, but did not send the staff report or the conditions to
Okay.
him before the planning commission hearing.
When was the planning commission hearing?
July 11th.
Okay, but he signed the conditions on the 22nd.
Correct.
Did you mean June or July?
He
22nd.
signed the conditions after the planning commission hearing.
Okay, so that's what. that's what I
July
had.
22nd. The hearing was July 11th.
Did any of these conditions come up at the planning commission
Yes.
hearing? They
There
did.
was discussion concerning the 30-day. The meetings are recorded just like these meetings are.
Okay.
And the planner did give a PowerPoint presentation, and there was a discussion concerning the 30-day time limit.
Okay. And the 22nd, he signed the conditions
Correct.
that are in question.
Correct.
Okay, so I asked Eric Porter on Thursday prior to the Monday I signed if I could please come down and see what was going on because he told me we have conditions for you. And I said, Eric, what are those conditions? He said, well, it's minor stuff like clean up your park, make sure your park's clean stuff. So I guess I can live with that. He said, we can't have them ready today and we're not going to be here open on Friday, so you can come down on Monday and get them. So I said, fine, Monday. But Monday put me out of compliance. And when I saw those things, I was like, wait, this is crazy. I mean,
Okay, wait a minute. So what do you mean it put you out of compliance?
well, because Monday was 8 days.
Okay.
So, I mean, I couldn't have them on Friday.
To be in compliance for when to file the appeal, what would the timeline have been on that?
It would have been 7 days from the planning commission meeting, so that would have been July 18th.
18th. Okay, so how is he going to appeal it if he was given the conditions on the 22nd?
Rob, I called Thursday and asked for them. I did.
Okay.
I don't know. It would have been, it was announced at the planning commission meeting that he had 7 days to appeal, but he had not seen the conditions.
Okay, so that, and maybe I'm missing something, maybe I'm stating the obvious, but how can somebody appeal something that they don't know about? If they don't have if he didn't have the conditions till after that? I think that's the bottom line.
Correct, and therefore that's why I sent the follow-up letter,
Okay.
giving him the ability to appeal.
Okay, so you're saying that he actually had until August 9th to appeal?
Correct. I gave him another opportunity because it was brought to my attention that the planning staff did not send him the staff report and conditions before the planning commission
Okay,
meeting,
and that,
which they
which
failed to
exhibit
do.
is that again? That's the, what is it?
E.
B?
E.
Echo.
Okay. There is an echo in here.
E is in EJ.
Okay, because I'm trying to look at this, look at what I wrote down here, and look at the calendar at the same time, so apologize for that. Okay, go ahead. So I see there's an issue. I see that there's so the August 9th. Just want to look at this.
And I did receive a response from Mr. Kelly after I did send the August 2nd letter.
You did what?
I did receive an email response from him
From
after
him?
I sent the August 2nd letter.
When did you receive that?
I believe it was August 7th.
Okay, so it was before the appeal time had run out. Okay.
In addition, that letter asked for $1,000 more to appeal this. $1,000 to appeal something I had no idea was even an issue at the meeting. And I'd like to also say that although Ms. Del Valle has mentioned that these items were discussed at that meeting, they were not discussed, and I have witness to that. One of the board members said, end the 30-day rule, but I just shut up and didn't say anything, and there was no discussion on it whatsoever. And I had no idea this fireball was gonna hit me because I never saw the conditions.
In the planning commission meeting, Dan?
Yes, sir.
I watched it because when I came to you multiple times and talked with you, I watched that because I wanted to make sure. And I know that Commissioner Soonram had brought it up, and you had talked to them about how it wasn't in compliance with the state. I think you had made some regulation discussion with it. So it was brought up, but I didn't hear any like result of it. But either way, it was discussed. I remember that.
I mean, we can have all these discussions later. I still stand on the fact that this county is in direct non-compliance with state law. I assure you, the state agrees with me.
And that's a different
So that's something
conversation
we
at
need to
this
deal with
point.
then. But right now,
Right now, what we're talking about
is-
is the opportunity for you to,
Right, and I
if the
think it's
timelines
gonna
were met, if we did proper notification or at least extended the opportunity, and that's what we're talking about.
Okay, so with respect to Ms. Del Valle's letter that she sent to me, an email that she sent to me, how am I supposed to know that stuff's coming anyway? I'm 61 years old, I have cancer, I don't get around much. I go pick up my mail once every 3 or 4 days, and you know what I don't do? I don't look at email because I hate it. I'm a retired manager from PG&E, I hate email. I used to have to deal with 180 of them a day. Why should I read email now? I watch cartoons in the morning and try to finish my day. I could barely breathe getting my belt back on out here today. I don't go to the post office box, and how am I supposed to know this stuff's coming? What reason is there for you to charge another $1,000 for me to protest something I didn't even know was coming down the pike? What kind of planning department tells you can only make 55 decibels in a commercial piece of property? That's just madness.
We're talking about
I understand
specifics
that.
again, and you keep going
Well, I
back to it.
totally
What
understand
we're
all these
talking
things.
about today is seeing if we can move forward with this and
All right, so
look at
I'm
the
gonna stand on
information
this
that was
right here. Look,
provided.
I never heard this stuff before this meeting. You guys charged me, this county charged me $3,000 to give me a permit for something I don't know nothing about. None of this stuff was discussed at that meeting. I'm serious. There was no 55 decibels discussed at that meeting. There was one comment made about the 30-day rule, which is absolutely in non-compliance with the state. It's absolutely, but I don't even care about, we can do that later. But the fact of the matter is that I can't be made responsible as John Q. Public. You know where that, Mr. Sabatier, sir, do you know where that paperwork is on that website? I found it. You've got to go to the supervisor's website. You've got to go to the agendas and minutes. You've got to go to the agenda. You've got to read the agenda items, and when you find the agenda items and everybody's looking at a phone, you can find a little tiny blue letters this big that you can't even read. And if you click on that, you can find a link that you can click on to get to the letters that we're talking about. I found it. It took me hours. I don't work for the county. I don't understand this process. Neither does anyone else who's applying for these things. I tried to pay TOT and I couldn't because I couldn't get a license.
Totally different
I
issue,
understand,
once
I
again.
understand. I'm just saying, it's all backwhacked.
Michaelin?
It's a mess.
Just a quick question. Is the permit in effect right now?
Yes.
Okay.
He's got 2 years until July 11th, 2021.
And the state has it, gentlemen and ladies. The state has it, and we're processing that process. But I'm going to have an RV park where I can't make 55 decibels. That's something we discuss
But-
later.
Okay, let me ask, go ahead.
I was just gonna make a statement, and I know we're only talking about the appeal, but the 55 decibels is static. If something happens where you bang something really loud and it's above 55 decibels, it's not gonna break the law. It's if you're having like loud hours worth of 55 decibels, that's breaking the law.
Well, actually,
You
sir,
wouldn't be.
I can do that at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's what the paperwork
Well,
says.
that-
I just can't do it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
We still need
all
to
right.
stick to the issue that we have today. Michael Lynn has presented the information to talk about the timelines to make sure that we met the opportunities for the appeal to happen. I know that there were one deadline that was missed. It was opened up again with the information that we've been provided for an opportunity to appeal. We're not addressing whether you have to pay $1,000 or whatnot to appeal that. What we're talking about is directly for the timeline met and opportunity given to.
Mr. Simon, sir, I mean, I really want to talk about both those things. I mean, really, I mean, how can I be charged $1,000 for an appeal on something that I had no idea was even happening?
Well, so can I?
Go ahead, Supervisor
Okay.
Brown.
You're not going to like this, but what I think is you don't have to pay, the good news is you don't have to pay the $1,000. The bad news is probably past the appeal point, and that's why. And I agree. I think, staff has confirmed that there was a timeliness error on our part, but that was corrected. It was amended and given another date, which was almost a month after the public hearing. But I think, what I want to suggest is, I don't think we have any choice as far as the appeal. I think the appeal timeline is what it is. But I can't think that there's not some process that you can come back and ask for an amendment to a permit. And maybe I'm saying the wrong thing, but.
Do you have an answer to that?
Yeah.
It's a minor modification.
Modification, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, and I think that's the solution for this. I think, here's what, I don't know if any of you have ever gotten a building permit or anything like that.
Absolutely.
Or gone through all this process of
Gone
use
through it.
permits.
Going through it right now.
Yeah, a use permit, a minor use
Yes,
permit,
minor
major
use permit.
Okay.
Gave me the rules and I said,
So-
okay.
Yeah, okay, so the rules were adopted under, with good intentions by past boards, and I was involved in some of those, and it all looked good, and we all sat down and worked together, until you actually go through it. And then I'm going through it right now, and I'm, complying with it, but it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. It may have back at the time, but that's the reason that we have the ability for modifications, because it's not a one-size-fits-all type process. And I think, given different circumstances, different geographic areas, different, traffic, there's just a lot of things that would cause, that would allow for the ability to modify these things with good reason. So I think maybe, Michael, and you could weigh in on that, but I think that's probably the solution, and that.
I don't know if I'm allowed to discuss the matters of the conditions today, but I don't think that staff's recommendation with the 30-day time limit is going to change even if he did apply for a modification, because that's not what the ordinance permits.
Go ahead, Anita.
I think that perhaps rather than giving a particular direction that may or may not be fruitful,
Yeah.
it's probably a good idea for staff to just speak to Mr. Kelly as to what his options are. And if your board wants to put, again, a larger issue on for a later agenda, you can let staff know that by consensus. You can't take action today because it's just, other than on the appeal issue. But as Chair Simons pointed out repeatedly, this is a one issue item before you right now. So.
And I believe that last time that we met, basically discussing this similar topic, that we did give a consensus to come back and review some of these ordinances. Is that correct? Or should we provide consensus again today?
What I would suggest is to be very specific, because Michael and I both walked away with different understandings.
So before we move on, I would like to get consensus from the board about reviewing. We all know RV parks used to be a temporary residence of a few days, maybe a couple weeks, but a lot of them are now 30 days plus. I would like to have a discussion about how to transition an RV park from a temporary stay to a more permanent stay, and how that possibility can happen.
And I think you can work with admin and Michael to get that added to the agenda at a later date.
Right.
So I'll be happy to help you guys with these issues, all you'd like. I mean, I'm available, and I'll be really honest with you. I know these laws, I do, and I'll also be really honest with you. For instance, the 55 decibel issue that we really are supposed to be, I've had 3 Meals on Wheels benefits and one Upper Lake High School graduation, or one Upper Lake High School.
All right, Dan.
We can't have that stuff at 55 decibels. We're an RV park, we're commercial.
We appreciate that information and your knowledge on from the state law side of it. I know that we're going to look to try and add this to the agenda at a later date, but today what we are talking about is the information that was provided by Michael Lynn about the opportunity for the
I
appeal.
just can't even imagine how you guys can't give me an appeal when I wasn't given the conditions before, prior to the meeting. Especially in light of the fact that I called and asked for it.
And so now with board direction, are we looking for a motion on this here? or
As
just-
to the appeal, you can either determine that the appeal was for reasons, for whatever specific reasons you want to give, you're going to extend the period of appeal based upon, again, very specific facts, or you're going to deny further period of appeal, finding that the legal standards have been met.
Okay.
And again, I just feel badly because you always, I want to side on the part of the business owner, always, I try to. But when you signed it on the 22nd, you essentially had it then.
That was too late. It was 8
No, it
days.
wasn't too late. She
No,
sent,
sir, it was
the
8
9th was the deadline,
Okay, I don't
the
care
9th of
what
August.
case Michael has given you. I'm
Okay.
gonna tell you right now, honestly, Rob, Thursday afternoon, I called Eric Porter and said, Eric, it's been since Friday. I want my conditions so I know what's
And you
going on.
got 'em the next Monday.
He said, sorry, we're closed, we
Right.
can't get them today.
I got it.
We're closed Friday.
I got it.
You'll have to come in on Monday.
Yeah.
That was 8th day, Monday.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. That was July 22nd. August 9th was
Excuse me, you're right, I'm wrong. Mr. Crandall can show you the email where I emailed him and said, Mr. Crandall, sir, or text, I need to protest this. I didn't know there was a formal process.
What day was that? If you could, because
Yeah,
I think
have
it's
it right
relevant. I think it makes a difference, but
I did not know the
from
process.
July 22nd to August 9th was the deadline.
No, July 11th was when it was signed. He had 7
No,
days from...
July 22nd was when it was signed.
Well, July 11th was when it was
She sent the letter out on
approved.
August 2nd, giving 7 days to deadline. That would be
Yeah.
August 9th.
Yes,
Okay, so,
that is the proper timeline for the second notification, yes.
Yes, for the second one.
Yes. The correction,
right.
because
The ultimate deadline was
good
August
decision.
9th.
So I saw the conditions 8 days after the meetings when I saw them, straight up. And I asked to protest.
but you
Mr.
saw
Crandall
him-
The day before that, but I didn't know there was a
Yeah,
formal
but you saw him
process.
17 days before the deadline,
The 7th is when he sent
the 7th of,
August.
okay? So.
2 days.
Okay. So that's 3 days, 2 days prior to the deadline, when he sent you an email asking for an appeal? And it may not have been the proper process, but I think the intent would be clear.
I mean, I don't know how a guy would know what the process is.
Well, it says in the, the letter that she sent.
It says.
And I get it, you don't check your mail, we can't,
Well,
that's,
it says you have a right to protest, but it
Okay.
doesn't tell you how.
yeah, it
And
does.
it both
It actually does.
came in the email and the letter form,
Yeah.
Correct.
which we know
And that's the
email
only,
is
that's the only
something
way
that
we
is
have, we
used.
don't make personal deliveries, so
I
that's the only,
contacted my supervisor and asked to appeal it, but
yeah, well, we'll see.
Yeah, I have the email where Dan had asked about what the steps were in appealing, and I mentioned that when we talked, that he needed to go to the county. He wasn't able to go because Friday they were closed or something along those natures is what.
you'll see the timeline. It was an e-
That's,
it was an
that's
evening.
that's what was stated to me when
Okay.
we talked later on Friday. And then I asked Michael if he had appealed. She said, no, he didn't appeal. And so,
Okay, so I'm trying to give every benefit of the doubt here.
Might I add that the next
on,
Monday, I handed paper to Mr. Crandall asking for that because I didn't realize there was some formal, I still didn't obviously know the formal process, or whom I was supposed to.
what did you hand to me on Monday?
I sent you an email.
Monday what? Monday is
So
Monday.
August 7th is,
Friday was the day that,
12th.
Friday was the day that I sent the first
Is a
letter to
Wednesday.
Mr. Crandall because I couldn't get usually it's Thursday or Friday, because I couldn't get Mr. Porter to give me the paperwork on Thursday, which I really don't understand. If this paperwork was done on the 22nd, why couldn't I have it on that Thursday? I was prepared to come in and get it.
So the 9th was the deadline, and that's, you were closed anyway, so the 12th would have been the deadline on that. So when the 7th day falls on a Friday, then it's.
And that's a really good question. If this paperwork was developed on the 22nd, then why couldn't I have had it on this Thursday that I asked for it?
Is that right? When the 9th is on,
I'm gonna do
when they're
mine
closed,
quick,
it would
but
go
I
to the next
didn't receive
business
anything
day.
You have no
Monday.
access to obtain mail?
Are you asking me?
I believe the mailroom is still open on Fridays, yes.
But they have until 5 o'clock on that day to submit it.
It says a 7th calendar day.
7 calendar days, yeah.
Right.
Till 5 o'clock. It says on here, 5 o'clock at the end of that day, at the end of the 7th day.
7th calendar day, correct.
Okay, but if we're closed, so,
You can't talk to planning on Fridays.
And I'll just, one thing I do remember you saying, Dan, when I told you to appeal, was you said you weren't gonna pay the $1,000, you didn't have it.
I don't have it.
And then that
You
was
guys
one of
are
the
broke
things
me. I mean,
too.
I got $9,188 tax bill I gotta pay right now, I don't even know how long I'm gonna pay. Not to mention $70,000 worth of tax I've paid in the last 9 years.
well, I'm trying to grasp at anything I can to give this opportunity for appeal, and I'm not finding it. But
If I gotta pay $1,000,
do
well,
say.
me and my wife will eat some more top
So,
ramen. What the
so,
hell?
but what I'm suggesting, hoping for, is that there's some opportunity to meet with staff and maybe, yeah, I won't suggest
I
that
sincerely hope
supervisor
you
gets
come up
involved
with
with
some
it, but, you
Yeah.
know,
There's only one more answer after this, and we all
but
know
I
what
think,
that is.
some modification, if
So,
there's any modification.
moving along with what's on the agenda today, any more public input at this point?
Hi, I'm Kevin Boysick. I'm a homeowner on Lucerne, and I'd just like to address your issue on the RV parks.
No, this is about the
This is about the timeline on the appeal,
Yeah.
directly for
Right,
that.
the appeal.
Not about the conditions, not about the
Right,
use
that's what I'm
permit.
saying. I think you ought to give him a chance to appeal this for his livelihood and for what he's trying to do for Lake County. He's not doing anything wrong. All he's asking for is a chance to make this work. The high price that you guys have put on him to run this RV park is ridiculous. Everything about, I've listened to what she gave us the last time on it. I've listened to what has been said today, and he needs a chance to make this work. And you guys have got the perfect opportunity to do it right here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we should wait for Tina. No, I'm just kidding. No, Bobby.
Bobby Dutcher, Kelseyville. A use permit is like a lot like doing a real estate deal. You do all your due diligence and get out to the end. But if somebody would, if like as a real estate broker, if I would have held that kind of information away from a buyer right till the last minute, had him pay the $3,000, and oh, by the way, here's 2 conditions that are going to make sure that you'll never be successful. I'd be worrying about hearing from a lawyer later on, even if the thing had closed up. It's just not the way the process should have worked. You should have known that all these conditions, as important as those are, they should have known before you paid the $3,000. I've had clients try to apply for use permits before the conditions are met, in the pre-application meeting, and they said, these are so bad, they go out, well, you're gonna have to build this bridge because it's a county road, we can't afford a bridge, we're gonna stick it on you. Well, forget it, then we won't do the use permit. But they find that out before they spent $3,000. So I think you definitely, should have known that. This is kind of a dangerous precedent you're gonna set for.
First, right? Pay the money in order to get the meeting started, right?
There is a pre-application option. There is a fee for that process.
Right.
But that is one way for applicants to find out what kind of conditions they may be looking for. It's not a complete process, but it kind of gives you some information.
There's a fee involved with that, though, right?
Yes.
And once again, that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about with the information provided. If we're going to make a decision as a board that gives them an opportunity to appeal.
Well, his use permit is going to be a really unfortunate template going forward. If the County of Lake, from now on, this is what RV parks have to do. They have to meet the 30-day rule. They have to meet that sound rule. I mean, my commercial building, I'm kind of worried about that because, once a week we have my landscape people show up, and they're running leaf blowers and hedge trimmers and things. In my little lot, I can imagine doing a 1 acre. If you have really nice landscaping, I'm sure he's going to violate the law once a week. So, I think you should make an exception here, because if you don't, you're going to ruin the values of RV parks of Lake County forever. This cannot be the template.
I think we're talking about a different issue here, that we're talking about the appeal and the timeline that was given the opportunity from community development. We're talking about the timeline. We're not talking about RV parks or other things. That may be a different agenda item completely.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
we've
if you can make an
already
exception,
given
this would be the
consensus
case
that
to
we
do
would
it.
review.
Yep.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay, any more public input?
Melissa Fulton, Lake County Chamber of Commerce. I've listened to all of the timelines, and I've listened to the fact that Michaelin divulged that there was an issue, an internal issue, which created some problems for the applicant in meeting the appeal. Now, we all know that the general public, even those involved in issues like this, are not truly familiar with the processes of government, whether it be city or county. As has been indicated, this project has gone on a long time, and it can be confusing to people who are familiar with government processes, let alone someone who's been through, I'll use the term, through the ringer for a long time. I think that there's two issues here. One, that the applicant was not given a full set of the conditions prior to the Planning Commission meeting, but was told that by the planner that, oh, well, there's issues, but there's not much, something about noise, blah, blah. But he was never provided with the conditions themselves. So then we go to the Planning Commission, and there was, as Supervisor Crandall has said, he listened to the tape of the meeting, and there were discussions on the 30-day. Now, Michaelin very generously decided on August the 2nd to issue a letter to Dan Kelly to give him another opportunity for appeal. However, county's closed on Friday. The postmark is August the 5th. Mr. Kelly gets the letter 3 or 4 days later, and the county again is closed on Monday. Did it occur to him that because the county is closed on Friday, did it occur to him that because the county was closed on Friday, that he actually had until the 12th? Again, I say that the general public, they're not thinking in those terms. Maybe they should, but they don't. So I think there's some leeway here to grant an appeal just because of, and ignorance is no excuse, but ignorance is a fact when it comes to rules and regulations. So I'm just putting that out for your consideration. Thank you.
Okay.
So can I just, Bruno?
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, so he didn't, and I'm not, accusing anybody of anything of misinformation or anything like that, but when it comes to the Planning Commission hearing, explain that just real quick to me. So are conditions given prior to the Planning Commission meeting, or are the conditions developed at the Planning Commission hearing, or
No,
both?
they're typically, the staff report and the conditions are shared with the applicant prior to the meeting.
Okay, were there any available? Bruno said that he saw it on the...
They're on the packet.
On the packet.
They were available on the Granicus website.
So they were provided.
But they were not directly sent to him.
Handed to him, but they were available. They were available.
On the Granicus website. Now, whether or not he knew where to find that, he may not have, as he indicated.
Well, and I get that,
but they were
but,
posted within the legal timeframes.
And somebody could come up to the third floor and pick them up. I mean, if you got that much money invested in something, I know I would say, I'm going through it now, now what do I need to do? What, I'm gonna stay on top of it, and not relying on someone to contact me. And then also, why would he have contacted you on the 7th if he didn't know that there was an issue?
I got a letter from Michael.
Okay, so you did get it?
It was a month later for the second.
No, it was, the letter was sent on the 2nd.
No, it was mailed on the 5th.
The letter was sent by email on the 2nd. It left her hands, she wrote it on the 2nd. We can argue about the time of the day and the way the moon was and everything like that. The reality is, she sent an email on the 2nd, she wrote the letter on the 2nd, it was postmarked on the 5th, you contacted Eddie on the 7th. So there's no getting around that. So that's what I'm saying.
5 days, 2nd to the 7th.
That's, okay, it's 2 days from the day that you say it was mailed, so you got it. And it was 5 days before the end of the appeal.
There was no
Okay,
way to talk
all
to
right.
the planning department, they're closed.
Okay.
The 7th was a Wednesday.
Huh?
7th was a Wednesday in August.
That's when it got made. Okay, the 7th I didn't get it, on the 7th.
Well, you sent him an email, so I assume you got something, so.
Okay, I'm sorry about the dates. You know, I'm just gonna leave it like this, because I'm getting tired of this silliness. This is a mess. This is a complete mess.
It is a mess.
I've had it.
Okay. My name's Tina Kelly. Why weren't we provided with the packet that she said that we, be quiet, hon. We were supposed to get a packet. They were supposed to mail us. Eric called me, I don't know what day it was, and asked for our address. He did not ever send us
Hey, Dan,
any
you can look
packet.
at me.
He
not
didn't
her.
send us any packet at all. We never received a packet. The only way we got the packet is my husband had to search for the packet online, that little blue spot that he punched
Wild
on.
goose
That's how
chase.
we got it. We never received it. That's why we're appealing
These people
this.
have been devious with me. I've had it. I've had it. The next, if I don't get an appeal, then San Francisco's coming. I've had it. This is insanity. We're breaking state law. The poor will change.
Dan, if you could please just calm down.
I'm not gonna calm down,
Please,
Logan.
well-
I'm sorry, man, but I mean, this is my life. I'm starving. It's 200, if I win, I lose $200,000 and 10 years of my life. Her employees are being devious. I never received a letter from Sufyan. I never received a letter that we're talking about. I never received any letters from planning. My neighbors got letters. Most of the Fulton calls me up and tells me I gotta start bothering my neighbors to get dates from them. They don't want me to get dates. They live in all these hovels. They don't want none of this to happen because they know. What are we gonna do here? We're in direct violation of state law.
Dan, we sent you the information. You got an email, you got a letter.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it. I'm sorry. They're not gonna help us. I think let's go, where's my wife? She left. You know what, I'll tell you something. You guys are fooling yourselves. You'll hear from my attorney.
Okay, board, we're gonna,
I'm not even
if there's no more input, we'll go ahead and close public input and bring it back to the board for a decision.
I was gonna motion to just deny it, I guess. We'll come back.
So at this point, we'll bring it back to the board for action to be taken.
So I will move to uphold the decision of the planning commission or for the community development department.
What is, no, there's no action to be taken on that.
direction.
No, it's just with regard to whether you think that the time period to appeal has expired or if additional time should be granted, that's all. So either one.
So is there action to be taken from the board?
No action.
Take no action, nothing.
Okay, no action. So at this point, there's no action to be taken on the, addressing the issue of whether or not to extend the appeal for Dan Kelly. All right, Michael, Lynn, thank you.
Thank you.
Take a break.
Thank you for your consideration and discussion.
Okay, that should cover all items on the agenda.
Sure does.
On the open agenda, and we'll go ahead and read. We're going to go into closed session. 8.1, public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code, Section 54957B1, appointment of a public health officer. 8.2, conference with legal counsel, decision whether to initiate litigation pursuant to Government Code, Section 54956.9 D4, one potential case. And 8.3, conference with legal counsel, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2 E3, California River Watch. All right, with that, we'll go into closed session, take a 5-minute break.